everyone. Welcome back once again to our ongoing lectures on the glories of our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dhama. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarane. All glories to Prabhupada. So, we're back in Vrindavan Dham, once again, wandering through the 12 forests of that transcendental abode. Though we've covered a lot of ground, in the last 12 months about Vrindavan, there are certainly more places to visit. I was reading just the other night, Adi Varaha Purana, there's a beautiful verse there, quote, Hey Vasundari, I've indicated 660 billion holy places in Mathura Mandala. Wow. And in Skanda Purana, the Mathura Kanda section, it's stated, quote, O king, in the course of time it may be possible to count the particles of dust on the earth, but the number of holy places in Mathura Vrindavan cannot be counted, unquote. Okay, so today I would like to begin by discussing a pastime that took place at one of the many kunds, or the many lakes, that surround the sacred abode of Varsana, where our beloved Vrindavan Eshwari, Srimati Radharani, lived as a young girl. Many months ago we discussed the glories of Varsana, but we can take a moment to refresh our memory about that special place. You may remember that at the end of Satya Yuga, Lord Brahma, he performed austerities with the desire to become a hill in Vrindavan when Krishna would appear in Dwapara Yuga. That would allow him not only to witness the pastimes of Krishna and his devotees, but more important in his mind, it would give him the opportunity to receive, quote, the touch of the soft pink lotus feet of Radharani and the gopis upon his head, unquote. So pleased with Brahma's austerities, Krishna fulfilled his desire, and Brahma appeared as a hill in Vrindavan in Dwapara Yuga when Krishna appeared on the earth. And we know that King Vrishabhanu settled his family in a palace atop that hill. And sometime later, Sri Radha was born to King Vrishabhanu and his wife, Kirtita Sundari. And the acharyas say that because Srimati Radharani causes a downpour, Varsha, and it can mean downpour. Because Srimati Radharani causes a downpour, Varsha of bliss, she's called Varsana. And for this reason, the place of her childhood residence was named Varsana after her. And the acharyas further say that the lakes, the gardens, the groves, even the stones of Varsana are, quote, saturated with the unparalleled sweetness radiating from Sri Radha's form, quality, pastimes, and entourage, unquote. Now, we also discussed in a lecture some months ago that the great Durvasa Muni, he once visited King Vrishabhanu's palace at Varsana, where he was very nicely served by Sri Radha. We're just summarizing here because we mentioned it before. Then in return for her service, Durvasa Muni famously blessed her, saying, quote, O child, you have served me with devotion and given me a taste of your unmatched culinary skills, meaning cooking skills. Therefore, I want to reward you with a blessing. And at that point, I remember Radharani joined her little palms, together like this in respect, standing before this big Muni. And Durvasa Muni's eyes clouded with tears as he gave her this blessing. Quote, "I now share with you half of what my austerities through many years have brought me. Dear Radha, I declare that from this day on, whatever you cook will taste like nectar. In addition, whoever tastes your preparations will never see disease, defeat from enemies, or bad fortune. O Radha, for as long as this world turns, you will be famous as the Empress of Cooks. And because everything you touch will turn to nectar, you will be known by names like Amrita Pani, Om Tat Sat," unquote. That's how he ended, Om Tat Sat, unquote. Special blessing. Now, moving on. When Mother Yasoda heard of Radha's newly acquired powers, she naturally desired that her son, Krishna, benefit from these special potencies of Radharani's cooking. So she spoke with Radharani's mother, Kirtita Sundari, and arranged that every morning Sri Radha would come from Varsana to Nandagram and cook breakfast for Krishna. So one morning, after Sri Radha had prepared a nice breakfast for Krishna, and she'd served the breakfast as well, and she was preparing to go back to Varsana, Mother Yasoda approached her, and taking young Radha's hand, she said, quote, "Radha, you are now of marriageable age. I know no one more suited for you than my son, Krishna. Our families should meet to discuss this idea," unquote. At that point, I was reading that Mother Yasoda brought Radharani a little bit closer, and as she was doing so, she was thinking, is this girl the goddess of fortune? Is she a Devi descended from heaven? By her mere touch, I feel transported to Vaikuntha, unquote. And then she observed auspicious signs on Radharani's palms. So Mother Yasoda reached for a tray of turmeric, and with a little bit of water mixed in, she gently washed Sri Radhika's palms with that substance, the turmeric, like this, until her palms were bright yellow. Then she said, "Radha, do you know what this means?" And looking puzzled, Radharani said, "No, Mother. Why did you put haldi? Haldi means turmeric. Why did you put haldi on my hands?" And Yasoda Devi replied, "Priya, when a young girl's palms are painted with haldi, it means she's engaged. What do you think of that?" So Radharani was surprised. She said, "I don't know what my mother will say, but I like to wander here and there at will. If I'm engaged, I'll lose my freedom." So Mother Yasoda, she said, "Radha, you are blossoming in the sunlight of youth. You must therefore accept the responsibilities that accompany womanhood. You cannot play in the dust of Vrindavan forever." At that point, I was reading Radharani, she shyly looked at Mother Yasoda and she agreed. So then Mother Yasoda said, "Now you should go home and talk to your mother and father and see if they give their blessings for this engagement." So Sri Radha left, accompanied by Lalita and Vishaka and many of her girlfriends. And as she was leaving, it's so nice, as she was leaving, Mother Yasoda thought, when this girl matures, the demigods will be amazed at the sight of her. In wonder, they will fall from the heavens like rain. And as the girls walked along out of shyness, Radharani was covering her hands in such a way that her friends couldn't see. They were smeared with turmeric. So suddenly, Lalita spoke up, Radha, what are you doing? Why are you holding your hands like that? And then she grabbed Radha's hands, and she turned them like that, and she saw they were covered in yellow turmeric. So she said, Radha, what is this? Who are you engaged to? And at that point, all the other gopis stopped walking, and they turned and they looked incredulously at Radharani's yellow-stained palms. So Radha, she said very quickly, Lalita, I'm not engaged. Mother Yasoda did this. So then Vishaka, Saki, she spoke up. She said, Shri Radha, you're too young to be married. You'll lose your freedom. You won't be able to walk through our beautiful Vrindavan, go to Pushpavan and where we get our flowers, and you won't be able to join us when we sell our milk products. We have to do something about this. So Lalita's there like listening, and she spoke up after a few moments. She said, actually this is not so serious, she said. It's just turmeric. It's not a permanent dye. There's a solution to this problem, girls, don't worry. And she continued, there's a beautiful lake near here, and I've seen the older gopis, they wash and dye their clothes there. It's the perfect place to wash that yellow turmeric off your hands, Radha. So they all proceeded towards, Lalita led them, and they all proceeded towards that particular lake. And as they were coming to that lake, and they saw that lake, they all smiled, because within that lake were many beautiful lotus flowers decorating it. And the entire area resounded, it's described, with the sounds of birds and the humming of bees. And numerous trees around that lake, they were bent over, their branches were weighed down with ripe fruit. We often hear that in Vrindavan. The trees are bending over as if offering, well, they are offering the fruit to Krishna. But what's most important, the acharyas point out, was that lake, that particular spot, was a favorite place for Krishna to take his cows, where they could enjoy drinking the sweet waters of that particular Pokar, that particular lake. So Shastra gives a very nice description what happened next, and I'll quote, resembling the princess of swans, Shri Radha strolled to the shore, and raising her skirt, she stepped ankle deep into the lake. And at that point, Lalita spoke up, Radha, be careful, don't slip. And then Sudevi, she laughed. She said, yes, then we'll really have a story to tell our parents. So at that point, Radhika cast a glance at all of her friends as their, quote, giggling echoed back and forth across the lake. I thought that was sweet. Their giggling echoed back and forth across the lake. Now, when when Sri Radha leaned forward to wash her hands in the lake, she suddenly saw her reflection in the water. And amazed by her own beauty, she paused for a moment, stunned by that reflection. And she thought, wouldn't it be nice to always be in Krishna's company? Then I would never have to be separated from him. This thought came to her mind. And then as she rubbed her hands together, with the water, the turmeric dissolved into the water and then spread out in golden circular waves. The turmeric entered the water, and then it spread out in golden circular waves. But bewildered by remembering Krishna, Sri Radha didn't notice her hands had become clean. So finally, Chitta Devi, she giggled, Radha, look what you've done. the waters are now yellow. Your ecstatic love for Krishna has permeated this entire lake. Your ecstatic love for Krishna has now permeated this entire lake. Let's go quickly before somebody notices. So Radharani stepped out of the water and she rejoined her friends. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he writes so wonderfully. Placing Radhika in front, the young gopis hurried towards Varsana. They appeared like a group of colorful clouds, their golden complexions like flashing lightning, their uncontrolled giggling like the playful rumble of distant thunder, and their love for Krishna like an imminent monsoon shower. Oh, please allow me to recite that again. All glories to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Placing Radhika in front, the young gopis hurried towards Varsana. They appeared like a group of colorful clouds, their golden complexions like flashing lightning, their uncontrolled giggling like the playful rumble of distant thunder, and their love for Krishna like an imminent monsoon shower. Now, the plot thickens. Not long after the gopis had left that particular lake, lo and behold, Krishna shows up at the same place. What was he doing? It's described he was searching for a stray calf. Sometimes it happens, the calf stray. So Krishna, he uses that as an excuse to leave the boys and go search for the gopis. So he was looking for a stray calf. And, he passed by this spot. He knew it very well. And he looked at the lake and he thought, what's this odd color of the lake? It's different today. It appears as if the water's been dyed a golden color. What's going on here? So he looked, it's described, he looked at the animals and the birds and the trees for a clue, but everyone was silent. So he thought, well, I'm going to stop looking for the stray calf now, and I'm going to investigate this. So he walked to the waters, towards the water. And at that point he was thinking, maybe this is the work of a demon, or perhaps the demigods are playing tricks again. So he approached the water very cautiously, and he gets to the water's edge, and he looks in at this yellow goldish pond, and suddenly he saw his reflection upon its golden surface. And the acharyas write very nicely, quote, there he was, possessed of the same turban, the same peacock feather, the same flute, the same cowherd dress, but there was a difference. His bluish black complexion now took on a golden hue. He's looking there in the lake, and he sees that his bodily hue is no longer bluish black like a monsoon cloud, but it's a beautiful golden color. So he said to himself, I look like a golden Krishna, how strange. Then with the birds and the deer and the trees and the flowers all watching, Krishna reached out and touched his own reflection on the water. And suddenly he felt a surge of ecstatic prema, love, run through his body. And we've heard of electrical currents going through the body, right? You touch a wire. He felt a surge of ecstatic prema run through his body, as if a bolt of lightning had struck him. And he drew back, and he cried, it's interesting, Vishnu, 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 what is that? And he thought, what is this mystical yellow substance in the lake where I water my cows? The love I'm feeling now is something new and remarkable. Usually I feel intense love for the Brajabasis, but when I touch this lake, I feel love for myself. This is extraordinary. Then he goes on thinking, only the gopis possess this sort of intense, extraordinary love I'm feeling. And amongst the gopis, Srimati Radharani's love is like the love I am now feeling. Then he goes on, the golden color of this lake is the complexion of her body, and the electrifying touch of its water is the mood of her love. It can only be that Radhika has empowered this lake with her prema. What other explanation could there be, he thought. So I read the Acharyas, they say at this point, quote, Krishna's appetite for tasting Radha's love was now fully awoken, unquote. So what did he do? He slowly entered the water. Then, up to his ankles, then his calves, then his knees, then his waist. And finally he was standing in that mystical lake, the water up to his neck. And then casting a blissful glance at the trees and the birds and the animals, etc., he dropped below the surface of the water. He dunked himself in all the way under the water. And it's written, quote, the golden waters happily embraced his transcendental form, unquote. So, while this was all going on, the flowers and the birds and trees, bees, they're all holding their breath in suspense. And just as they were about to lose consciousness, Krishna, he came up out of the water. He reappeared from that yellow golden water, but in a very unusual state. Still dressed as a cowherd boy, Krishna's bluish luster had disappeared, and his actual complexion was now completely golden. And it's written that if one were to melt gold 1,000 times, it might resemble the lustrous brilliance that emanated from Krishna's body. But the change in Krishna was not merely external, it's described. There was also a change in his internal disposition. And coming up out of the water onto dry land, that was shown by the fact that he started looking around as if he were searching for someone. And lo and behold, he started calling out his own names. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And looking left and looking right, our golden-colored Krishna, he was absorbed in the mood and the happiness and it's described the ecstasy of Sri Radha. And therefore he called out, where is Sri Krishna, whose form is curved in 3 places? Where is the sweet song of the flute? And where is the dancing, singing, and laughing of the rasa dance? As Radha would say. Then he cried out, O my Lord, O friend of the helpless, you are the ocean of mercy. Because I have not met you, my inauspicious days and nights have become unbearable. I do not know how I shall pass the time. So then our golden Krishna, thinking Krishna might be hiding in the nearby gardens, along the lakeside or in the forest, he started moving about, singing his own names, and it's described in the sweetest of voices. And then he would go into the forest, the surrounding forest, and he'd go to a forest grove, and sometimes he'd look for Krishna behind a tree. Sometimes he'd inquire from a forest creature, have you seen Krishna? The forest creature would go like, what? Within his heart, golden Krishna, you could say, had forgotten his identity. And he was thinking of himself as none other than Srimati Radharani. So again he called out in the mood of Radha, "O Krishna, O player of the flute, in these three worlds nothing excels the sweetness of your early age. You know my unsteadiness, and I know yours. No one else knows about this. O my beloved, I want to see your beautiful, attractive face somewhere in a solitary place. But how can this be accomplished?" So you see what's happened here. Actually, one Acharya, he summarizes it very nice. Quote, "Bathing in the waters stained yellow by Srimati Radharani's hands, Krishna became bewildered by her prema and displayed the form of golden Krishna. Roaming through the forest, he sang his own names, yearned to hear his own flute, and cried in hopes of seeing his own form." Then he goes on to say, "As a mystical potion gradually loses its influence, so slowly golden Krishna remembered who he was, and he resumed his blackish form as Shyamasundar, and again took up the search for his lost calf." Voila. So even today, the respective Brajabasis, they call that famous lake next to Varsana, Pili Pokar, the yellow pond. So certainly next time, hopefully not too far in the future, when we do our Kartik Parikrama, we will go to Pilipakhara and we will take our bath there. One of the many bodies of water that we will bathe in when we're all back together in Sri Vrindavan Dhama. So that's a short talk today. I hope it was sweet. They say short and sweet. And I'd like to finish with a rarely quoted verse, actually, that I found in the mystical Brihad Gautamiya Tantra. It's part of a discussion between Narada and Krishna, where Narada Muni, he begins, "O master of the people, I desire to hear about the 12 vanas, the 12 forests of Vrindavan. If I'm qualified, please tell me." So Krishna smiled. He likes to talk about his abode. And he said to Narada, "Pleasant Vrindavan is my favorite abode. They're all cows, animals, birds, insects, and humans. They're immortal. Those who live under my mercy come to my abode upon achieving liberation from the material world. The daughters of the cowherd men, they live in that abode. Completely giving up all connections, they serve me continuously. That special place, Vrindavan, measures 5 yojanas, and it is non-different from my very body. The sacred Jamuna, flowing with the sweetest nectar, is the Shushumna, meaning the central nerve of my body, there. All the devatas and the elements exist there in a spiritual form. I, the embodiment of all the devatas, do not leave that transcendental forest of Vrindavan even for a moment, although I appear and disappear in this world age after age. But that radiant forest, full of pleasure, is invisible to the material eye." Unquote. What a wonderful verse. So, thank you, everyone, once again. At this point, I'd have a request of all of you. I'd like to take your permission to take a break from the classes for a couple weeks, so that, to begin with, I can prepare myself for Gaur Purnima, which is coming up, actually in a few days, Sacred Gaur Purnima Festival. A little time after that, because I'd like to spend a lot of time chanting on my Japa beach. I've been chanting all this time, but I guess maybe the result of all this Shravanam, Kirtanam, Krishna Smaranam is that it purifies the heart, and we have our desire for the activities of devotional service increase. And I have a strong desire to, instead of studying all day and preparing my lecture, I just like to sit and chant. Like, for an extended period of time. And come back, more purified and able to present these wonderful leelas, hopefully better. We've been going 1 year and 3 days today. Well, actually 1 year and 3 days. And I've given, with this class, 136 classes. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. So please give me just a little break, just to, 1 year is a long time. Just so I can chant my heart out day and half the night. And I'll be back. I'll come back on the, if you want, you can mark it in your calendars. I'll come back with the next lecture on April 9th. That's 14 days from today. It's a Friday. I'll come back on April 9th. And we'll just continue. What is it? Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday. And do remember that we'll soon be, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we'll soon be entering into to Gaura Leela. And maybe I'll use a little of this time also to get ready for Gaura Leela as well. So, with your permission only, thank you very much. And I'll be back. And we'll continue with this Shravanam, Kirtanam, Krishna Smaranam, Gauranga Smaranam in very soon. So please everyone keep well. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavan Eshwari Srimati Radharani ki, Pili Pokar Kunda ki, Shri Varsana Dhama ki. Back home, back to Godhead, to Goloka Vrindavan Dhama ki. Oh, glories to Shri Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhus. See you soon. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.